I've noticed we're losing subscribers. Not the YouTube kind, but the kind that swore they'd be in my life forever. Funny how that works. One day you're surrounded by people who claim to love you, and the next, you're watching them walk away like you were just another phase in their lives. By the way, if you're here, do me a favor, subscribe. It's free, and unlike some people in my life, you won't regret sticking around. I always knew I was different from my family. While they thrived in the heat of a busy kitchen, juggling pasta orders and barking commands in the family's famous Italian restaurant, I found solace in the quiet, in the soil, in the whisper of leaves against the wind. My father, a man who ruled his restaurant with an iron fist, had already carved out my brother Mike's future. The golden child. The heir. The one who was destined to carry on the family legacy. Meanwhile, I, a 35-year-old senior claims adjuster with a six-figure salary, an office overlooking Central Park, and my name etched on performance awards, was my parents' secondary source of pride. Not quite Mike, but still a success story they could brag about at dinner parties. But success is a funny thing. On paper, I had everything: the job, the condo, the financial security. Yet every morning I sat in my high-rise office, suffocating under the weight of accident claims and corporate emails, while my soul wilted like an unwatered flower. My only escape? A tiny rooftop garden I had built with my own money, a secret sanctuary in the middle of Manhattan's chaos. Still, that wasn't enough. Not like Grandma Rose's garden. That was my true haven, her sprawling Victorian home wrapped in blooms and vines, where she had spent years teaching me about soil, companion planting, and the secret language of flowers. One crisp October day, as I pressed tulip bulbs into the cool earth, Grandma's knowing eyes watched me. "You feel it, don't you?" she said softly, her weathered hands patting the soil. I only nodded. How could I explain that working with plants made me feel more alive than any promotion ever had? That my heart beat in sync with the roots pushing through the dirt? "Not everyone has this connection to the earth," she whispered. "It's a gift. And one day when you're ready, you'll follow it." That day came sooner than I expected. Thanksgiving dinner. The smell of turkey, Dad's famous gravy, and tension thick enough to cut with a carving knife. Mike was showing off the restaurant's latest wine cellar, another one of his brilliant ideas that Dad had greenlit without question. Meanwhile, I sat there, fingering a folded letter in my pocket, the admission letter from the New York Botanical Gardens landscape design program. My moment had arrived. I took a deep breath. "Do it." "I'm going back to school," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've enrolled in the Botanical Gardens landscape design program." Silence. Then, Mom's fork clattered. Dad's face turned the color of the cranberry sauce. Mike snorted so hard he nearly choked on his drink. "Asterisk, what are you?" Dad's voice thundered across the table. The wine glasses trembled. "You're leaving your career to play with plants?" Mom's hand flew to her chest, tears already brimming. "Honey, you're a senior claims adjuster. Do you know how many people would kill for your job? Your 401k, your health insurance. What are you thinking?" Mike, always the instigator, chuckled under his breath. "So, what, you're a professional gardener now? What's next, living in a treehouse?" I could feel my hands shaking beneath the table. But I refused to back down. I've already turned in my resignation. December 15th is my last day. And just like that, the world I had known cracked in half. Dad's fist hit the table so hard the plates jumped. "You can't count on our help if you do this," he thundered. "We didn't send you to business school so you could throw it all away on some midlife crisis." Mom sniffled into her napkin. Mike smirked into his wine glass. I sat there, feeling the last shreds of their support slipping away. Then, quietly, Grandma Rose placed her own wine glass down with deliberate grace, her quiet power slicing through the chaos like a knife. She turned to my father, the man who ruled over our family with unshakable certainty, and asked, "Joe, when was the last time you were truly happy doing something you chose for yourself?" For the first time in my life, I saw my father speechless. The next morning, feeling like a fool, I drove to Grandma Rose's house. She was outside, bundled up in her faded blue gardening apron, pruning her beloved rose bushes in the crisp November air. "They don't understand, Grandma," I muttered, grabbing a pair of shears to help her. "They think I'm throwing my life away. And maybe they're right. Maybe I am crazy for starting over at 35. She put down her shears and looked at me, really looked at me, with those wise, knowing eyes. Eyes that had seen decades of growth, loss, and rebirth. "Your parents don't see the world the way we do," she said gently. "But they just want what's best for you. Still, some gifts aren't meant to be ignored. These plants, this earth, it's magic, sweetheart. And it would be a sin to throw away something so rare." She led me into her greenhouse, where the air was thick with warmth and the scent of damp soil. She stopped beside a fragile little orchid, its leaves drooping, its petals curled in on themselves. "Look at this one," she said softly. "Everyone said it couldn't be saved, that it would never bloom. But I knew better. The most beautiful things don't always reveal themselves right away." She smiled. "Just like you." Winter came, and with it, my new life. I left my Manhattan condo for a small apartment in the Bronx, close to the New York Botanical Garden. My sweeping city views were replaced by a tiny balcony, where I experimented with container gardening between classes. The transition wasn't easy. My savings from the insurance company would cover my living expenses and tuition for 2 years, but every financial decision suddenly mattered. And the classes? They were nothing like I expected. Landscape design wasn't just about placing pretty flowers in neat rows. It was science, math, art, and architecture all tangled into one. There were complex calculations, ecological studies, and endless diagrams. Some nights, I sat under my desk lamp, surrounded by crumpled-up sketches, wondering if I had made the biggest mistake of my life. But every morning when I walked into that garden classroom, something inside me whispered, "This is where you're meant to be." And that was enough. My dreams were no longer about spreadsheets or accident claims. Now they were filled with cascading vines, wildflower meadows, and perfectly balanced garden designs. Every night I went to bed exhausted, covered in dirt, but deeply, profoundly content. At school, I found my people, especially Rachel, a fiery 28-year-old with wild red hair and a laugh that could brighten even the dreariest winter morning. One afternoon, as we hunched over our CD projects, she glanced up and grinned. "You should see your face when you're designing," she said. "It's like you're speaking your mother tongue at last." She was right. But outside of class, my world still felt foreign. Sunday dinners at the restaurant had turned into an endurance test. The family table, where I had once been seated with pride, had been reassigned. Now I sat at the bar, an outsider in my own bloodline. "Learned how to push a lawnmower yet?" Mike would jeer, smirking over his glass of wine. Mom, ever the peacemaker, would slide newspaper clippings across the table, job postings for corporate positions, a silent plea to return to the world she understood. That. He barely looked at me. Instead, he spoke only of Mike's newest restaurant expansion plans, as if my choices had made me invisible. Then everything changed. 6 months into my program, I entered a small landscape design competition hosted by the city's gardening association. My submission focused on sustainable urban spaces, green havens that were both environmentally conscious and socially enriching. I poured every ounce of my soul into it, and against all odds I won. A brief mention of my victory even made it into the local paper. At Sunday dinner, my heart pounded as I shared the news, hoping, just hoping, that this would be the moment my family finally saw me. Dad didn't even look up from his plate. "That's good, honey. But when will you start living your life seriously?" Mike, grinning as always, added, "Hey, maybe you could design a fancy little garden for the dumpster behind the restaurant." Mom, ever practical, chimed in with what she thought was support. "Sweetheart, if you apologized, Liberty Mutual would probably take you back. Mrs. Henderson told me your position still hasn't been filled." It took everything in me not to break right there. That night, as I drove home, tears blurred my vision. I called Grandma Rose. She listened as she always did, without interrupting. Then, in that wise, steady voice, she revealed something I had never known. "Your father was the same way when he opened the restaurant. His father wanted him to become a lawyer. He was so sure his path was the only right one." She sighed, the weight of decades in her voice. Funny how life comes full circle, isn't it? Despite my family's indifference, my career slowly started to bloom. At first, small commissions came in from friends, then their friends. A popular lifestyle blog featured my container garden designs. My name was beginning to mean something in the world I loved. But at home, nothing changed. Mike's gardener jokes grew sharper. Dad immediately changed the subject whenever my work was mentioned. Then we got the call. Grandma Rose had cancer. And it was aggressive. She was gone within weeks. The last time I saw her, propped up in her hospital bed, she was still trying to give me gardening advice. "The winter bulbs," she whispered, her voice weak but determined. "Plant them deep enough. And never forget, you're exactly where you're meant to be, my love." I didn't know it then, but my world was about to be upended once again. It all started with my brother's wedding. But that's a story of its own. Update: the wedding that changed everything. 3 weeks have passed and so much has changed. First, Grandma Rose's will. She left me everything. Her entire home. Her entire garden. A property worth over $800,000. 4 years, Dad had his sights set on that land, planning to bulldoze it for more restaurant parking. When the lawyer read Grandma's decision, his face turned a shade of purple I had never seen before. "This is absurd," he roared. Mike was even blunter. Mike scoffed as the lawyer finished reading Grandma Rose's will. "Great. Now she can really play gardener in her own little kingdom." Amanda, his 32-year-old fiancée, snickered beside him. She had already adopted my brother's condescending attitude toward me, like I was a charity case instead of his sister. But there was something they hadn't anticipated. Grandma Rose hadn't just handed me the property, she had left behind a condition. Her garden, her vision, had to be preserved and developed according to the detailed plans in her journals. It was her final masterpiece and I was entrusted with bringing it to life. Determined to honor her legacy, I threw myself into the renovation, working with conservation groups to restore rare plants and transform the space into an environmentally friendly urban oasis. Word spread, and soon, a prestigious gardening magazine reached out. They wanted to feature my project in their Heritage Garden series. Then came Mike's wedding. The invitation arrived in an oversized cream envelope, dripping with self-importance and gold foil. It was no surprise. Amanda's father owned half the county's real estate empire, and the entire affair was designed to impress their affluent connections. I decided to go. But instead of playing the role of the family failure, I arrived in a sleek, understated designer dress I had bought with my prize money from the competition. The ceremony was lavish, held at the most expensive venue in town. Mike made sure everyone knew he had personally paid for it, though I later discovered Dad had footed a significant part of the bill. Then came the reception. That's where things got interesting. I found my place card at table 23. It wasn't just at the farthest possible corner of the room, right by the kitchen doors. It didn't even have my name on it. It said, "The Gardener." I took my seat, keeping my expression unreadable. Amanda took delight in parading me in front of her high society friends. "Oh, this is Mike's sister," she said, plastering on a faux sweet smile. What is it you do again? Put some flowers in the ground or whatever?" Behind their champagne glasses, her friends giggled. But karma has a way of balancing things out. A well-known event planner working for the venue recognized me immediately. "Oh my gosh, you're the one from the gardening magazine. Your sustainable designs are absolutely brilliant," she gushed, loud enough for Amanda's entire table to hear. "I've been following your Instagram project. It's an honor to meet you." The color drained from Amanda's face. Then the real kicker. Amanda's uncle, the mayor, stood up to give his speech. As he praised Mike, he casually mentioned how proud he was to see me involved in the city's upcoming Sustainable Parks initiative. "Her work is shaping the future of urban green spaces," he declared. The same high society guest who had laughed at me moments earlier now turned, whispering, suddenly interested. Dad and Mike sat frozen. Amanda's frantic attempts to downplay the moment fell flat when several of her family members came up to me afterward to discuss garden design, including the head of the city's Parks and Recreation Department. "We're looking for creative designers for our next urban renewal project," he told me. The next morning my mother called. For the first time in months. Her voice was hesitant. "I read the article on Rose's garden in the magazine," she admitted. "The pictures? They're stunning. You've really created something special." She didn't say more. But later, I noticed something ironic. The restaurant's website had quietly updated its About page. It now highlighted their family's involvement in sustainable urban design. No mention of me, of course. But the universe wasn't done yet. The moment my family finally had to swallow their pride. 2 months passed. The Parks Department project was even bigger than I'd expected. The plan? Transforming an entire city block into a community green space, with gardens, educational centers, and sustainable landscaping. One catch though. The project required repurposing an informal parking lot businesses had been using for years, including my father's restaurant. At the municipal council meeting, I stood at the front, presenting my designs. From the back row, I could see my father and Mike, their faces darkening with every new slide. When it came time for public comments, Mike shot to his feet, red-faced. "This proposal will destroy local businesses. Has anyone even thought about how this will affect the area's well-known eateries?" He refused to look at me. But then the mayor, the same uncle who had sung my praises at the wedding, spoke up. "Actually, research shows that urban green spaces increase property values and foot traffic. Your sister's design includes designated restaurant zones with outdoor seating. If anything, this will help your business." The irony wasn't lost on the room. Several council members visibly struggled to suppress their smiles. Dad and Mike? They had no choice but to sit back down in silence. Then came the final twist. The price of swallowing their pride? $25,000. Last week, the restaurant received an unexpected visitor. A Michelin inspector. My father had been waiting his entire career for this moment. But there was one small problem. Their famous herb garden, the one they prided themselves on for supplying fresh ingredients, had started dying. Mom called first, her voice barely contained panic. The plants are wilting. The inspector is coming back tomorrow for a second review, and your dad, he's not handling it well. An hour later my father called. His authoritative voice, always so sure, now sounded strained. We need your help. I let the silence stretch. Oh, I said, feigning surprise. I didn't think gardening was a legitimate career. Another long pause. Then, with effort, he asked, what is your consultation fee? I named my price, $30,000. Dad sputtered. That's highway robbery. Actually, I said coolly, it's below the market rate for emergency horticultural services. But since we're family, I'll give you a discount. $25,000. They paid in full. Within a day, I diagnosed the problem, poor soil pH and drainage issues, and implemented the fix. The Michelin review went off without a hitch. A few days later, the local newspaper ran a feature on the restaurant and its potential Michelin star. The article praised its innovative herb garden, designed by a renowned landscape architect, who also happens to be a family member. When a journalist asked my father about the garden's design, I watched him visibly struggle. Finally, through gritted teeth, he admitted, my daughter handled that. Now, every time someone compliments the garden, he has to smile and explain that his landscape architect daughter created it. Life really does have a way of coming full circle. Sometimes, the very thing your family dismisses can become the foundation of something extraordinary. What started as my passion, belittled as just playing in the dirt, has blossomed into a thriving business, a citywide initiative, and most importantly, a renewed family bond. Now, my father proudly wears our garden-branded apron, tending to the very herbs he once overlooked. My brother, who once scoffed at my career, now acknowledges its financial impact. And Amanda? Well, she brags about knowing me before my designs became the gold standard in urban landscaping. But beyond the accolades, features in magazines, and national recognition, the most meaningful moment came in the form of a simple letter from a high school student. A girl who, like me, had a passion that wasn't understood by her family. Seeing my journey gave her the courage to pursue environmental science despite expectations to follow a more prestigious career. That letter reminded me why I fought so hard in the first place, because dreams deserve to be nurtured just like the gardens we grow. A lesson from Grandma Rose's garden. Legacy isn't just about following the paths laid before you, it's about expanding them, making room for new dreams to take root. My father built a restaurant to bring people together. I built gardens to help them reconnect with nature. Together, we've created something bigger than either of us imagined. If this story resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to fight for a dream that others didn't believe in? Let's inspire each other. And if you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, share, and spread the lesson. Sometimes the dreams they doubt the most are the ones that change everything.